Yeah, hi, my name is Dr. Roberto Tostado, and I wrote a book called What the F is Wrong with Our Health, and the subtitle is A Rebel Physician's Manifesto for Reversing Disease and Increasing Smiles. I'm a doctor that used to do family practice, and now what I do is help people heal and reverse disease in regenerative medicine, and it's been a wonderful journey, and I hope through the book you can get inspired to help yourself on So Booking Cool with Jewel B.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. It's Jewel B. Coming up right now is my conversation with Dr. Roberto Tostado.
What are some of the things that you continue to learn as a doctor, even though you've been in this industry for a long time?
Well, what I did learn was how much I didn't really know. After medical school and residency training and then doing family practice for several years, where, yes, we're taught in a certain manner of how to approach health. And over the years, basically what happened was I began to realize I felt uncomfortable. And I had like this crisis with my conscience because I felt that all I was doing as a medical doctor was managing disease and managing people's problems with medication upon medication. And so I took a step back from this whole thing and I thought, there has to be a better option than this versus just giving someone a prescription for every symptom that they complain about. And I thought as a doctor that I would be healing people and healing their ailments versus just kind of maintaining them. And so what I learned throughout this process was that there was a lot more to learn. And that's how I ended up going into regenerative medicine, because my intuition was basically telling me, I think it's about food and nutrition and what we need to put in our bodies. And I truly believe that health begins in the kitchen, not at the doctor's office. And it helped me for my issues. I was significantly overweight. I had cholesterol issues, fatigue issues. And so I had to empower myself with the knowledge of what it is I could put in my body. And at the time when I was really unhealthy, I was actually doing a lot of exercise, but it wasn't helping me. And so what I learned at that point was that, as I say in the book, exercise is overrated. Even though I'm not against exercise, and before fitness gurus start yelling at me, the point is that when people really learn what to put in their body, I'm not talking about diets here. I'm just talking about good foods, whole foods, what you'd find on a farm, basically. And it's a very old message that is when you start to transform. And so my book really goes into the whole transformation of our mind, our body, and our spirit, and approaching health from a whole balanced perspective, because I think a lot of us are walking around with toxic thoughts, definitely a lot of toxic foods, and a corroded spirit. And if we can approach these three things in a very practical manner, which is kind of what I outline in the book from my experience of knowing and not knowing and then relearning, I think so many people can feel this empowerment that I'm talking about, and how I like to empower my patients with that control of taking their life back into their hands and not have to depend on all these clinical visits and medications for the rest of their life, because the rest of your life is a long time. So I'd rather people enjoy their quality of life at whatever age, help them reverse disease, and and strut and smile, because that's what life should be about.
Is it ever too late for a patient to turn their life around and get back on track in terms of health?
Absolutely not. And that's why I say health at any age. I've helped people from so many age groups, whether they were 70, if they're 30, anywhere in between, or, even in their 80s. And my point being is that once you give people the awareness of what they really need to know in terms of, what they're putting on their kitchen table, mm-hmm. and their whole mindset about health and illness, for that matter, it changes the whole perspective. It shifts their whole world in a positive way, because here a lot of people are under the misconceptions like, oh, I thought I couldn't eat fats. I thought that everything I ate had to be, low fat. And what I tell a lot of my clients is that focus on good fats like, olive oil and avocados and eggs and fish fats. nuts, and these are the sorts of things that will give you more energy and they'll help reducing sugars, blood sugars for my diabetics. And introducing, fruits and vegetables that they enjoy the most. A lot of people don't like vegetables, so I always tell my patients, well, eat the vegetables you hate the least, and at least that's the start. And then eventually they could start enjoying these things. But the whole thing is really trying to immerse people into this whole idea at whatever age that you can regain that confidence and the control of your life based on these decisions that you make. But we've been bombarded, unfortunately, with commercials that show a lot of, overweight, unhealthy people, what I used to be, smiling on the beach or at a park as long as they're taking their pill. And those are very powerful messages that these pharmaceutical companies put out there. And my point is, why live like these commercials with this pill that has drastic side effects? And everyone's seen these commercials where it gives you like a minute worth of side effects, and it almost becomes laughable because it's so terrible. And the thing is that helping people make decisions in their kitchens, going through things like detoxification with whole foods to help them clean their bodies. This is how you help regain energy, reduce a lot of chronic pain, reverse what we call metabolic diseases like obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, which is so common now that you're seeing young kids, 12, 13, or younger, with what used to be called adult onset diabetes, and that term doesn't exist anymore. What I learned in medical school, it's now just type 2, because obviously these kids are not adults. But because of all the sugar in foods, all the processed foods with chemicals that they're eating daily and fast foods, it's making us a fatter and sicker world. And I think in the year 2025, we're going to be considered 80% obese as a country, if we're not there already. That's pathetic. If all these diets and all these, medications were really helping us, how is it that we're getting sicker and fatter? It just makes no sense. It's illogical. So my whole point is to put logic into all this, and so this is how we're able to help people understand that they can do things even now. I've had a patient who had 30 years of diabetes and 6 medications, and in 6 months, we had her lose about 45 pounds, got rid of her diabetes, normal medication, her blood work is normal, and she feels fantastic. For 30-some years living with disease, she thought that this was the end of her life, that was her sentence. And I told her, look, it's not a jail sentence, but you have to determine if this is what you want. And that's what's key about the mind. As long as people understand, health is a choice. And that's why I say in the first chapter, health is a mindset. You got to want it. And when you decide, I don't want to live with fatigue, I don't want to be tired all the time, I don't want to have all these appointments and all these medications, this is when you start making your personal shift of wanting to be healthy. And that's what happened to me. My daughter was going to be born, and I said, you know what, I need to be around for this little girl, and I have to be around and be healthy. And that's why I decided to put the donuts down, put the cereal down, the sodas, whatever, and I replaced those things with what I enjoyed, of the fruits and vegetables and the meats and the beans and all these other things that I describe in the book, so that people can understand, wow, it becomes personalized. So it becomes the Jewel way of eating. It becomes the Samantha way of eating. And everyone determines for themselves whether they want to be vegan on one end or they want to be Atkins Paleolithic on the other. The point is to eat from the spectrum of whole foods, replacing a lot of junk foods. But that being said, have the occasional donut, have the occasional pizza, wine. I mean, I do. But it's about being balanced in the mind and in your body. And then this way, you can start making these significant strides in your life and feel better. And then it happens pretty quickly, which is the best part of this. It doesn't take years. It could take weeks to months.
Okay, yeah, because I definitely wanted to know whether or not we can consume some of the sweet treats and guilty pleasures that might be considered junk food in moderation, like instead of giving it up, so we don't have to give them up entirely?
Not at all. And in fact, the book cover has a big donut, because I truly was a donutaholic, and I seriously was. But at the same time, I was eating a lot of fast foods as well. And so my point to people is, look, the term that I came up with in the book was everyone should be what's called a balanced-atarian. And that really is determined by you. So that I don't want people to feel robotic or so structured that it's a turnoff. And that's what happens. So many people ask me, well, what about this diet? What about that diet? I say, can you live like that the rest of your life? Answer me that one question. And if you can't, then why would you want to do it? So what's easier for me to think about and for a person to want to, incorporate in their life is go to a farmer's market and look at the things that are there, that are alive and that are fresh foods, and pick the ones that you like. From the fruit, from the vegetables, from the proteins, from the beans, from the good fats. And then this way, you're truly tailoring it towards what you enjoy. And I always tell people, it's cross-cultural. So use the spices that you enjoy. Make sure you use things like garlic and onions and turmeric, whatever, chili peppers, because these things add even more nutrition. Cinnamon is fantastic for diabetics because it actually lowers insulin resistance. When it comes to sugar and sweet tooth, because my wife's a massive sweet tooth, she's a nurse practitioner who also went to culinary school. So she's working on a book that's going to help raise healthy families, and that's how we raised our daughter, where you could use things like raw honey or granulated, dehydrated coconut. And so this way, you're using things that are much healthier but taste as delicious. Because I don't want healthy food to taste healthy, because then that's another turnoff. Healthy food should be delicious. Foods that heal our body don't necessarily have to taste like cardboard or like rocks or twigs. They should be real foods. And in this way, what happens, and I find this so amazing as I go through this with each of my patients over the years, they realize that a lot of the cravings that they used to have, once they start putting all this good food in their body, those cravings actually start to disappear because the body's filled with all these good, dense nutrients. And so it's all about discipline at that point. It just becomes automatic, and that's what happened in my case. After eating all these good things of what I enjoyed, protein-wise, and with the fish and all these other things, all of a sudden I stopped craving the donuts. And now you can put donuts in front of me, and it's like it's no big deal. I'm not going to go after it like I did 20 years ago. Because I truly believe all of us are carboholics until proven otherwise. We're all sugar-brained. And sugar is a very addictive drug. So that the more sugar you eat, the more you want. And I don't know if you notice this, but like if you have a bowl of cereal in the morning or pizza for lunch or pasta, you're hungry an hour later or so because it's the cheapest form of fuel. So that when you start putting in high-dense foods of your choice from proteins and from fats, what happens is that you feel full for hours and you're not craving all this food like you did previously as a carboholic or sugar addict. So with that being said, enjoy the baguette, enjoy the cookie, enjoy the whatever, and then that way you do feel balanced and you don't feel guilty, because guilt is a big part of diets as well. And I want people to be guilt-free. So yeah, that's how I approach it here at the office. And the message, yes, go ahead.
And you were really, wow, so you were able to get rid of one of your patients, or maybe, and perhaps more than just one patient, their diabetes, simply by diet?
Oh, many. I mean, it's incredible. It's so amazing
that
what I did not learn in medical school. So, it's a thing where when someone comes to me and I tell them, okay, let's start reversing your diabetes, let's start reversing your obesity, let's start reversing your blood pressure issues, whatever the case might be, what we call metabolic disease in general, which is increasing incredibly here in this country, if not globally. And my point is that people, they get a little shell-shocked, like, what? Well, what do you mean you're going to get rid of it? Well, I'm not supposed to be sick the rest of my life? And that's unfortunate when I say we have a toxic mindset. Mm-hmm. And I know you have friends, family that they believe, well, when I get older, I'll probably get this, or I'll probably get that, or it's in my genetics. And that's not true. The point is we have accepted abnormal as normal. And that's why when I mention those commercials, people are saying, well, I look like that, so I must be normal. So abnormal must be okay. And so, I had a guy, this other patient, a few years back in his mid-50s, and we had a conversation on the phone before we met in person, and he was like, well, look, I'm only 30 pounds overweight. I got diabetes and high blood pressure. I'm taking like 6 meds, so I'm pretty good. In fact, I'm pretty healthy for my age. And I started laughing, and I said, no, in fact, you're the opposite of healthy. And he was a little surprised that I was that honest. And so I said, well, let's help you reverse this. And so we've developed this detox program, which we could talk about, later at the end. And my point is that it's all whole food based. And what happens is that during this few weeks, people learn how to just dig in to what this whole food eating is, and sugars go down in diabetics, and blood pressure starts to come down. And little by little, we're able to take away their medication, or with the help of their doctor, their regular doctor. And so going through this process in less than 2 months, in 8 weeks, we reversed everything. He lost 30 pounds, and then I told him, now you're normal. So he had accepted this whole concept that he was normal. Mm-hmm. And that's what's kind of scary. People think that being overweight or being on medication, that it's okay. It's just, it's part of getting older. And getting older has nothing to do with getting disease. It really is our choices and our lifestyle that will determine the quality of our life going forward. And so that's the point that I'm making in my book. And again, from a practical perspective, how people could do this in their own homes and start changing their health in a very positive manner.
Speaking of that, what made you leave family practice in order to go to regenerative medicine?
Well, that's when, after doing family practice for about a decade, during the last few years of my career in traditional medicine, I actually was feeling unhappy and pretty miserable, and I felt what I was doing was kind of soul-crushing because I just didn't feel I was really making an impact on people's lives as much as I thought I was a good doctor, listening to them, taking down their symptoms and complaints, doing the blood work, and then giving them the appropriate medications. I mean, because that's how we're trained. And the point is that I had to take a step back. And I went to a conference that I got invited to in the early 2000s. And when I attended this conference, I felt like I was in an audience with fellow defectors, other doctors who felt like I did. Like, there's got to be a better way of doing this kind of stuff because enough with these prescriptions. And so a neurologist was giving a lecture on the top 10 causes of death in the United States. And behind heart disease, strokes, and cancers, number 4 was prescription medication as a top 10 killer in this country. Well, you talk about something being eye-opening. I basically felt that way because there are so many drastic side effects from medications. And again, these are things you could see on TV commercials. Cancers have side effects, potential fatality as a side effect. And again, I ask, why would you want to take something like that? It just doesn't make sense. It stops making sense. And so, it's a 2,000-year-old idea that food is your medicine. That's Hippocrates who said this. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm just kind of going back to go forward and to make people understand that this is where our health is, but it's also about our mindset and finding inspiration as to why we want to be healthy, and ultimately, dig deeper into our spirit and say, am I someone that's always angry, always filled with some kind of grudge that's not allowing me to be happier and healthier? And so that's, after that lecture, that's when I decided to go into regenerative medicine or a medicine that actually can help people live long quality lives without chronic pain, without diabetes, and the side effects of diabetes, which could end up, where you end up on dialysis, or you could lose a leg from amputation, or you can get a heart attack because of diabetes. So the point is why not make people aware and empower people and inspire people to say, look, if you start making these choices that you have to make, I can't do it for you. After all, I say in my book, this is a help yourself book because you do have to make the choices yourself. And the point, though, is that at least you have this knowledge in this tiny book of how you can start turning things around in a very real, significant way. So that's the reason I had to do traditional medicine, family practice, and go into regenerative medicine, because I stopped accepting disease as part of life. And I wanted to introduce this concept to my patients since I reversed my issues through food, so that they can understand they don't have to live with disease. It's not a life sentence. They don't have to be imprisoned and feel hopeless. This is infusing them with hope and with reality. So that's the reason I took a turn in my career, and it was a leap of faith. I didn't know. I just followed my intuition. I said, I think it has to do a lot with nutrition. And that's how I was able to help myself, and helping patients do the same thing.
And it sounds like you made the right decision to take that leap, even though you weren't sure, right?
Yeah, wow. No question. And, a lot of my colleagues where I was working said, oh, I think you're going to fail. And I thought to myself, well, that's what they believe. That's not what I believe. And, in life, you realize you have to stand for something. And this notion is what I bring to my patients. What do you stand for? Do you want to be unhealthy and sick the rest of your life or not? And then by posing it this way, they have to now call themselves out. Because, in the book I say, we're con artists. We BS ourselves. We're always kind of, skewing away from what the truth is with ourselves, and why do we continue to do the same things over and over if we know it's harming us. And the point is when you look in the mirror and you realize, okay, it is time for me to change, that's where you determine for yourself in your mind why, for whatever reason, whatever inspiration you have, that you want to turn it around. And so that to me is the most important question that you can ask, because I cannot convince somebody to want to be healthy. It's like asking a drug addict, can you just stop? Well, it's up to the drug addict. It's not up to you. So I tell my patients, I'm here to give you awareness, to hopefully inspire you, give you the knowledge, but then it's up to you. And I would say most people, after we have our initial consultation, will say, let's get rid of this. I'm tired of this. Because people are tired of being tired. They're tired of, just feeling the way they do day to day, where they can't do much of anything because of the fatigue, their weight, difficulty sleeping. And in so many ways, we're seeing men becoming more and more emasculated because of all the processed foods, and they have chemicals that reduce testosterone. So I do a lot of what's called bioidentical plant-based hormone therapy, where I get guys in their 30s with low testosterone, which is ridiculous. It's like 30 has become the new 60. So,
wow.
It's all because of all these processed foods. That here, how I approach it is, once I've examined a comprehensive, blood lab work, we see what their levels are hormonally, and this applies to women as well. And we help them detox their bodies through this system to get rid of a lot of these chemicals, and they're going to drop some weight from getting rid of all these chemicals in their body, food chemicals I'm talking about. Then help them restore their hormone levels, and all of a sudden, they're walking around feeling like they used to 10, 15, 20 years before, with energy and less body fat. Men get, the man boobs as they start to become more and more emasculated from low testosterone due to all these processed foods and energy drinks with chemicals. And so the point is that if we were living 100 years ago, we didn't have all these chemicals in our foods. But because we do, this is the new way that we are adapting with our bodies. Our bodies are becoming less healthy, holding on to more fat, getting things like diabetes, because it's the stuff that we keep putting in our systems. And so by approaching it the way I have been, and I'm sure there are other doctors, many other doctors, I'm not the first nor the last. And the point is in the book, I encourage other doctors to take a look into this approach, or at least to refer patients to doctors who have a more nutritional background, so we could work collectively as a team to help people restore their health, not just manage their disease.
What are some of the causes then? Because some people say there's no cure for bronchitis. So Dr. Tostado, what do you have to say about that?
Did you say bronchitis?
Yes. Like
okay,
what's wrong? Yeah.
No, well, I was going to say, diseases in general are basically what we call inflammation or inflammatory. And inflammation can be called different things. So if it's inflammation of bones, you're going to call it arthritis. Of the lungs, you could call it an asthma or bronchitis, which is more of an infection. If the pancreas has issues, you're going to call it diabetes. And the point, though, is that all inflammation has triggers. And so, or chronic pain, say fibromyalgia. And my point is that when you start addressing any form of inflammation through detoxification to get rid of these triggers from the body, and a lot of them are what's in processed foods. And what are processed foods? When you walk into a market, everything in the middle aisles, basically in bags and boxes. But that being said, so if someone has a lung issue and they're more susceptible to a bronchitis, an infection, well, what are the triggers? Is the person smoking? Or with all these processed foods and preservatives, chemicals in them, they can trigger someone who has a weaker immune system. So by building someone's immune system through their foods and through certain herbs at times, things like echinacea, can help bring up someone's immune system so that they suffer less and less from bacterial infections or fungal infections. Candida can be very common with people, so that they gain weight, they feel bloated, or they get headaches all the time. Those are very common features of candida. And so I've helped people with that by helping them, reduce sugar intake, again, focusing on more of their intake of proteins and fruits and vegetables, but and go through what's called like a gut cleanse, or things like probiotics that people are familiar with that help with resistance from all of these bad bacteria. And when you start reducing bad bacteria in the body, you start reducing infections. You start reducing things like a bronchitis or common, or someone who's always getting colds. And the point is what I noticed with myself is that as I transitioned over the years, I got less and less sick, even though I'm exposed to sick people all the time. And now it's so rare, it's strange. I just don't get sick, and that's because of the immune system. So by building people's immune systems, that's the way you start reducing infections, even though you're exposed to people that are coughing and sick or whatever the case may be. So it really comes down to getting the body strong, and it really is about what you're putting in your body.
How long on average would you say it would take for someone to get to a point to life where their immune system is so on point, if you will, that they can't get exposed to other illnesses? Like, how long would that take?
So you're saying, so how long would it take for someone's immune system to build up so as to prevent them from getting sick?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, the answer is it's going to depend in the sense that what is the current health, what is the current age, what is the current mindset of the person. And so the point is that if someone's had, for example, 30 years of a chronic disease and 30 years of medication, it might take that person a few months to close to a year to really start getting their immune system to a certain level. And then if someone smokes or if someone abuses alcohol, all these things suppress our immune system. So the point is to try to capture this as soon as possible. And this is why I'm such an advocate of starting with your kids so that they can start developing good habits so that their immune systems are stronger at a younger age. So that this way and this is why in the book I call in one chapter that we're living in the generation of degeneration, because we've degenerated to such a degree that we're seeing so many childhood illnesses that used to just be adult illnesses. And this is a travesty. And the point is that if we could start addressing what our kids are eating, that's already going to build their immune system, because what nature has already provided for us out there is good enough for our immune system. So this is where people start noticing the difference in their own bodies and going through these specific therapies of detoxification And being aware of their thoughts too, because someone's always thinking, oh, you know, I want to be sick anyway. Oh, you know what? And always thinking kind of in a dramatic, chaotic way, which I point out to my patients if they do, and try replacing those thoughts with things that are more positive. Meditation, for instance. Now, meditation is can be a very intimidating word. So how I approach this is in a practical way again. So I tell people, look, when you sit on your toilet, you're basically meditating. You're alone, and most people like that alone time in the bathroom or taking a shower. Or if they're outside on their porch, if they're watering plants. I tell my patients, use that as a moment to basically try to clear your head of any negativity. Stop focusing on things that disrupt your own personal peace and harmony. And this is how we clean up, you know, kind of the soul aspect or the soul food part of the book. Because meditation in whatever form, going out for walks, sitting at a beach, being at a park, whatever, again, makes you happy, to surround yourself with nature, this is critical for your mind because you're emptying out a lot of mental toxicity, which ultimately affects what you feel in your heart. And the point is that when people start doing these things, whether it's taking a bath with a candle or music, whatever the case might be, now they're getting deep into how they are as a person, and it's going to start reducing stress in a very real way. Cortisol is what's known as the stress hormone. So when we're always stressed out, which is every day, especially in this modern world, we're always producing this cortisol, and cortisol will eventually lead to weight gain, high blood sugar, so you become diabetic, high blood pressure. It could lead to chronic headaches, fatigue, and even cancers. So the point is, you know, the ancients had it right when they said meditation is critical on a day-to-day. Who has time to meditate? No one does. So that's why I'm saying what you do in your daily routine, find 5 minutes here and there, and if you could extend it to 10 minutes, to 15 minutes, to half an hour of alone time, hide in your garage, hide in your car. These are forms of meditation. And this way, you can start building your immune system as well. So it's not just about the food, but it's about what are we feeding our heads and what are we feeding our hearts. And this way, you're detoxing negative thoughts, you're detoxing your stomachs, and you're detoxing your heart so that you become more balanced and healthier, and you're boosting your immune system. In fact, there was a study that shows if you laugh, and this is why I'm always telling people, watch comedies. They make you laugh, and it boosts your immune system. It literally boosts your immune system. Wow. Whereas if you're angry, you will suppress your immune system. That's no coincidence. You see people that are angry all the time, usually they're complaining about some kind of ailment. People that laugh a lot, it's not that you're immune to illness, but chances are it'll be few and far in between episodes because you're happy, and that will boost the immune system in a very real way.
What are some of the foods that can make someone an insomniac?
Well, that's a great question because so many things can cause sleeplessness, and I get into it pretty deeply in the book. But when I was talking about that cortisol, when cortisol is elevated in our bodies, usually cortisol, which is produced by these organs called the adrenal glands, gets stimulated if we overdrink coffee. Well, that's kind of the obvious one. It has caffeine. And I'm not against coffee. I drink it myself. But it's when you put all the junk in it, sweeteners, caramels, whatever, that's when it becomes an issue. So sugars, caffeine, any kind of stimulant, but for that matter, even processed foods, because most processed foods, crackers, cookies, breads, pastas, ramen, they're all going to break down to sugar, and sugar is going to be a stimulant. Alcohol doesn't allow us to sleep well at night. Now, some people say, well, you can have a glass of red wine at your meal, which is so true. That's fine. But typically people go beyond that. And so it really is about looking at what you're putting in your body that's a stimulant, whether it's caffeine or a sugar. Alcohol breaks down the sugar. And so there's a common denominator here, that all things sugar are not going to allow us to sleep. And so I see so many people with sleep issues. And again, and the liver, which is the main filter of our body to clean out all the stuff that's in our bodies, whether it's medication, chemicals, pesticides, whatever, the point is when that liver gets congested, it's like the filter of your car being filled with corrosion. So when you change the filter of your car, it runs better. Well, when your liver is cleaner because of what you're putting inside your body or doing a formal food detox like we do here, what happens is people are like, oh my God, I can sleep better. And this is fantastic. I have more energy now. And what they find really surprising is they have more energy than when they were drinking 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day. They don't need the coffee anymore, or they cut it down tremendously because the energy is coming from a clean liver and it's being replaced, again, with these whole foods. And that's when the connection is made, where these are healing foods versus foods that are making me feel terrible. So that's what can disrupt sleep tremendously. And a lot of people are walking around insomniacs. They don't get good sleep. They wake up, so they have to take even more coffee. Midday, they eat a candy bar or a pastry for the sugar, more coffee at night. And so you see it's a vicious cycle. And all this caffeine stimulates more cortisol. More cortisol, more obesity, more blood pressure issues, more headaches. So it's a cycle that people get stuck in. And I'm pulling people out of this cycle. It's like, the old hamster on the wheel. Get them out of that wheel so that they now feel that they're back in control of their life.
Dr. Tostado, what has been the response to your book so far with the food?
Yeah. And by the way, the F on what the food means food, but it also means the other F word, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, okay.
Because, it does express a little bit my frustration of why are we living in this kind of crazy world where things are just upside down. It stopped making sense to me. But the point is, to answer your question, the response has been so positive. I'm seeing fantastic reviews on Amazon, and patients of mine or patients give it to a friend, and they'll post something or they'll let me know in person. You've really inspired me. You've really given me truth that I always thought was there, but I wasn't quite sure, or I never heard a doctor talk this way before. And thank you, and thank you. And that's what makes me happy, that I feel like I'm really bringing smiles to people's faces and inspiring them to take control and regain that happiness that they thought was gone. And so it's been a very positive response.
And how would you say that your book is unique to other health books?
Outside of the F words, I think my book, I wrote it so that I could connect with people. I don't want to sound like this doctor just lecturing, and kind of like we're talking right now. And the point of it is because I break down health from the perspective of our mind and the body and our spirit. And I've not come across a book like this. So I felt I needed to just say it this way so that people understand if we could detox our mindset and start thinking in a more positive way about our health and not accept abnormal as normal. If we could detox our bodies either through going through a formal detox or changing the way we eat, as I outline in the book. And then lastly, if not more importantly, help detox our hearts, our spirits, because you could eat kale all day long and be a jerk, and the kale's not going to help you. So you've got to look inside as well, so that by letting go and practicing what I call, forgiveness in the last chapters, people start to realize that they do feel more balanced, because it's not just about exercise. It's not just about eating organic whole foods. It's not, just about doing one thing or the other. It's all. It's whole. And I think this approach is unique from my perspective, at least. And it's stuff that I've practiced and stuff that I pass on to my patients or anyone who's interested in knowing how they can get better. And so people say, oh, I just eat organic. It's going to get healthier. And I tell them, well, look at the other two sides of this. What are your thoughts? Are you very negative? Are you very hateful? Are you accepting or not? And then this way, they understand that health does come from these three perspectives. It's not just the stomach, but it's our heads, it's our hearts. And I think with the humor, and humor is a huge part of this, and I'm hoping that by making people laugh in the book, that in itself is very uplifting and inspiring.
Wow. I do have two more questions, Dr. Tostado.
Sure.
I would love
Absolutely.
to know your thoughts on why do you think a lot of people are choosing to become vegan, as well as, and I want to know, why are you a rebel?
Well, thank you for those two questions. Look,
Yes.
in terms of veganism, I'll say this first. If you choose to be vegan, be a vegan. In other words, again, don't lie to yourself. I've seen too many vegans who are quite overweight, chronic fatigue, because they weren't vegan per se. They were pizzatarians. Oh, well, I eat cheese pizza. Oh, well, I eat a lot of tofu. I eat a lot of bread and cheese. Well, that's not vegan because that's not vegetable. And me as a non-vegan, I eat more vegetables than a lot of these vegans that I meet. Now, that being said, plant-based diets or ways of eating are extremely healthy. Now, the only thing is that people can lack vitamin B12 because vitamin B12 is only coming from meat sources. So you could take supplements of B12. My point, though, is that, yes, plant-based can help reverse so much disease as long as you are willing and happy, most importantly, living this way. So I don't endorse any one specific way of eating. And like I say in the book, whether you want to be a vegan, you want to be ketogenic, you want to be Paleolithic, whatever the case might be, as long as you're eating from the spectrum of whole fresh foods, things that you find at the farmer's market. Because, one little saying I have with my patients is the more trips you make to the farmer's market, the less trips you make to your doctor's clinic. Because, again, this is food that's alive, it's fresh, it's not tainted. But we do have to look for organic foods. And that's just the truth, because there's less chemical exposures with organic foods. But I tell people, be smart about it. The things that you eat most of the time, get those organic. And it's not like we're going to be perfect about this, because it's impossible. We're constantly being exposed to things. And I think that this way, people can feel more balanced. And inadvertently, I've converted some vegans to adding protein because on their blood work, it showed that they were low in vitamin D. Again, stuff you find in like fatty fish. They were low in B12 because, again, you don't find it in vegetables. And I tell them, well, introduce fish. And then this way, continue with all your plant-based foods and then have things like salmon or cod, whatever. And then this way, they're getting vitamin D, they're getting omega-3, which are great fats to protect our heart and our brains. And they're okay with that. And the reason I think I've got this rebel kind of notion about me is that I'm always about the truth and being authentic with my patients and with myself. And because I lied to myself for so many years when I had weight issues, and then I realized, okay, I really need to put what's going to help me in my body and think differently. And once I came to this whole perspective of how I was able to help myself, and I thought, well, I want to help people heal. And at that point, I guess I became a rebel, because instead of believing in this whole prescription way of healing, or of treating people, I should say, because you don't heal people with medication. You just stabilize their disease and keep it managed. So when I made that decision is, I guess, when I became a rebel. Because if it's rebellious to tell people to eat broccoli, if it's rebellious to tell people, let's help you reverse your disease, if it's rebellious to heal people from disease, then I'll be a rebel any day. And it's a rebel with a cause, as far as I'm concerned.
Dr. Roberto Tostado, everyone. Wow. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you, Jewel.
When you talk to a doctor, and especially one like yourself, you just want to keep the conversation going and going. Would you write another book?
I'm actually working on one, and it gets more kind of on the aspects of the last 2 chapters, which are the spirit chapters, and so we'll see. I'll work with my editor and see if it's something we can work on together. If he's up for another project with me.
Okay, good. Because I would also love to interview you again, and also, your wife you mentioned is going to be writing a book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's great.
She should be done by the end of the year, hopefully. Yes.
That's awesome. And how can people keep up with you and WTF is Wrong with Our Health? How can people access it, get it, purchase it, support it, and the iBody Wellness Center?
Yeah. So the website of our clinic is theibody.com, THE_IBODY.com. The book is available on Amazon, and you can also request the book at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and if people are interested or want to find out more about this detox, 3-week detox system that we developed, which is all whole food based and organic, they could go either to the iBody.com or ibodydetox.com. But either way, they'll find it. And my phone number is there. If people want to ask more questions, if they live in the area and they want to come and meet me, meet the rebel in person, I'm happy. So
that's wonderful. Definitely make sure you guys follow up and stay abreast of what's happening with iBody Wellness Center. Thank you again, Dr. Tostado, and thank you to all the listeners. Until next time, so booking cool.